Air drums today, coming to you live from the Oski Dental Studios.
Heck yeah! It's time for some real talk brought to us by New Life Community Church in Wellman. What a beginning! Woo.
Hey, we're off to a fast start this morning. Just a word about New Life Community Church in Wellman, our current working motto, which we change every couple of years.
Okay.
Because I get bored with old mottos. God, friends, fun. If you don't have God, friends, and fun at your church, then you should get some God, friends, and fun at your church. I was about to tell you to go to a different church, but I don't want to be that guy. But if you're anywhere close to the Wellman area and you're looking for a church, hey, come on down to New Life on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock at the Parkside Activities Center, which is also known as the YMCA building or whatever. It's up in the North Park. It's the biggest building in town. You can't miss it. And we're there at 10 o'clock. So we like to talk about vision and faith and fun stuff like that. And since the Olympics are going on, actually they might be over by the time this episode airs.
They're
But
still going.
They're
Yep.
still going. Okay. The Olympics are still going to be going. But we're going to be close to my favorite event, which is the men's marathon.
Okay.
The last event. I'm not sure if I'm going to catch it this year because I think it starts at 1:30 in the morning or something.
Ooh. Yeah.
That'll be 1:30 on Sunday morning. And
probably the Olympians probably only takes them like a half an hour to run a full marathon. How long does it take an Olympian to run a full marathon?
Just over 2 hours.
Okay.
Oftentimes it turns into a tactical race, so they almost never break world records at the Olympics. But 2 hours, 5 minutes, it'll be somewhere right around in there, maybe even a little bit faster than that. But my son, I think, is planning on hosting a watch party.
Oh, wow.
I don't know who will come to his watch party, but he's going to try. So hats off to him. So the Olympics are going on, and people have put in just enormous numbers of hours to chase excellence and to get on that stage in the first place in some obscure sports. Air pistol shooting. Pew, pew. I actually went to the U.S. Olympic Center in Colorado Springs one time.
Okay.
And they have an indoor range for shooting handguns and rifles, probably mostly air rifles. But they're at like 6,000 or 7,000 feet elevation there. But that room, that shooting gallery is not just climate controlled, but it is air pressure controlled to simulate what it's like to shoot at sea level.
Oh,
because almost all Olympic games, I think except for the Mexico games in, what would that have been, 68, I think. Olympic games are always really close to sea level.
Okay.
And France is, I don't know, it's a couple hundred miles from the sea, so it's at 800 feet or whatever, but basically sea level. So they've actually got this climate-controlled, air pressure-controlled room that simulates shooting at kind of whatever you want. So all that to say, some bizarre disciplines. I watched some equestrian sports. That was cool. Some German guy won.
Hans. His name is Hans.
Probably. Three gold medals in a row for him. So hats off to the German equestrian community.
We know we have a lot of viewers from that particular group.
Yes,
German equestrians.
Yes, we may have some horse riding people in our audience.
I'm sure.
And if you do equestrian sports, please say hi in the comment section. I watched some basketball between Canada and Australia. That was not thrilling. But all kinds of stunt riding on bicycles and
breakdancing this year too.
Breakdancing. How do you score breakdancing?
I don't know. We're gonna get down to a spinneroonie once we're done here.
I'm sure our audience would love to see that, Steve. There we go. Did you ever get into breakdancing back in the 80s?
I mean, Michael Jackson, of course, was the thing when I was a kid. So everybody thought they could break dance, but no, you just saw basically my entire repertoire of break dancing.
Did you ever work on moonwalking?
Oh, yeah, I tried. You just couldn't figure it out.
It's pretty amazing. But we're going far afield here. Enough about the Olympics. Enough of that. The main point about talking about the Olympics is how hard people work and how it doesn't matter how weird their sport is. These athletes have dedicated so much for the opportunity to win a gold medal. And so every time the Olympics rolls around, I do a sermon series and I start off in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24, which says, run in such a way as to win the prize. So we talk at church about living in a way that you that you qualify for heaven, that you qualify for a reward in heaven. You don't get to go to heaven. We talked about this at length a couple of weeks back, but you don't get to go to heaven because you lived so well. But you go to heaven because of what Christ has done for you. But let's live like winners. And so I just talk with the church about what are some ways that we win like winner or live like winners. And so I've been talking about gold medal vision. Like, what kind of vision do you have? Because the vision that you have for your life is going to determine your direction and your speed and your motivation. If you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to get nowhere.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I love to unpack the story of Joshua from the book of Joshua. So the first two verses are always fascinating to me because right before Joshua comes the book of Deuteronomy. Dude. And at the end of Deuteronomy, Moses dies. And everybody weeps and mourns for 30 days. So you would notice that.
Sure.
If you were around, especially if you were Moses's aide, that was Joshua's job. And you would kind of notice that your boss was dead.
You'd think so, yeah.
And there was a 30-day long funeral. You would notice that.
Yeah.
So that ends the book of Deuteronomy. And then one sentence later, at the beginning of Joshua, God shows up and says to Joshua, my servant Moses is dead.
What?
Oh, God. That's, wow. Great message.
Did he say, thanks, Captain Obvious? I kid.
You don't want to say that to God, but sometimes you read stuff in the Bible and you kind of think that thought. And why wouldn't Joshua have thought that thought? This is real talk. We're getting real here today. Sometimes we pray prayers like that. Thank you, God, for being so obvious. Moses is dead. Okay, but I bet Joshua stopped and thought about that for a little bit. What is God trying to get at when he says Moses is dead?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay.
You obviously have the answer. I'm not going to say something that's going to make me look stupid. I already did that.
Well, I think I've got an answer, so I'll try this out. It's not just that Moses, the person, was dead. I think God is emphasizing to Moses that an era is dead. And Moses was a good era. Some of us have lived through some pretty crappy eras, some eras of depression or addiction or poverty, and even if it's not a very good era, we get used to it, we get accustomed to it, we get comfortable in our old patterns of just like, I've always been poor, I grew up poor, my parents were poor, I've always been poor. How could life be any different? Or my dad was an alcoholic and I'm an alcoholic and now my kids are all alcoholics and it's just kind of the way life is. And I puke in the morning every day, but that's how it is. And if you've been living in an era long enough, sometimes you need God to be Captain Obvious and say, listen, this era is dead. Now, in the case of Moses, it was a great era. Moses brought the people out of slavery in Egypt. They crossed the Red Sea on dry ground. That was pretty chill event.
Yeah. Chill, yo.
Chill, yo. Dude, that's why,
Deuteronomy.
because Moses was so chill. So then they wandered around in the desert, and there was manna, so they didn't have to work for their food. This food just showed up on the ground every morning. How great was that? And then when they got tired of eating honey-flavored wafers,
Nilla wafers.
yeah. Like, God, we're sick of these honey-flavored wafers. Can we have meat? And God says, yeah, sure, have some meat. And like these clouds of quail come in, and so they're all eating quail for dinner. Sounds French. Honey-flavored wafers.
Oh, let's not talk about France again.
Okay. So we're not talking about France. There's a pillar of cloud to give people some air conditioning at day, and then at night there's a pillar of fire. And folks, you can go back and read about all this stuff in the books of Exodus and Numbers, especially has kind of the story of this stuff. So all of this great stuff going on. And then Moses dies. But it's not just the physical death of Moses. God shows up to Joshua and says, this whole era is dead. So now I want to ask everybody out in our audience, is there some kind of era coming to an end for you? I think both Steve and I have had era-ending events in just about the last year, 3 months. Both of us moved out of careers that we had been in for a long time. Sports coaching for me and being on radio for Steve. And I don't know. Do you still feel sometimes like you're in transition?
I think I've transitioned out. I think I'm where I'm at now.
Okay.
The era of social media for me, it is.
So I think I'm getting close to like it's been about a full year since I last coached, and so it's kind of settling in. But it took a while, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I still think about radio, quite a bit.
So it can take some time, but boy, you don't move forward until you really let that former era die and be dead. And once that is put aside, once you set that aside in your heart, then new vision starts to open up. Then there's new horizons. So you gotta let the old era die. You gotta mourn for it. Hey, the people wept for Moses for 30 days. That's a long funeral. But after that, let me just I'm gonna grab my Bible here and read just a couple of lines. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give them. I will give you every place where you set your foot. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. So be strong and courageous. And then God has to repeat that like 5 times. Be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. Because apparently Joshua was a little scared. And we get scared going into new seasons.
Yeah.
But bottom line here, I think to run the race that God has for you, like a gold medal winner, you gotta have river crossing vision. You gotta be able to say this old era is dead, and I'm not gonna sit and wallow in it. Enough wallowing. I got to move. And there's a river in front of me. And as we read about the Jordan River at this time, it was the rainy season, so it was in full flood. It was out of its banks. And you look at those obstacles in your life and you say, how on earth am I ever going to get across that obstacle and get into the new thing that God has for me in my life? But you got to be a river crossing person, or you'll just sit and wallow for a long time. And we don't want that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a good place to wrap up, huh?
Let's wrap it.
Okay, it's a wrap, but come back again next week. We'll talk about more gold medal living, and let us know in the comments, what is your favorite obscure Olympic sport? We want to hear from you. Is it breakdancing or synchronized diving? I actually watched some of that the other night.
We could do synchronized belly flops or something.
All right, we'll think about that before next week, and we'll come back and let you know if we did that.
Hey, we do thank New Life Community Church in Wellman for being our headline sponsor here on Real Talk. Aaron, we'll see you next week.
All right.